the message. Go tell the world that you're a Christian. Be not ashamed his name to bear. That's a good message. But also, I like this. I looked through a couple different things on YouTube to find the tune, and then I saw this. You know, this is how we all appear to God. We all think we're pretty grown up and sophisticated when we grow up and get sophisticated and get a job, but this is what we look like to God. This is what he looks down and he sees. And it doesn't matter. Just like the song we sang earlier this week, red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. All of the world's people are the children of God. And he delights in all of their unique races and dialects and languages, and we just have to catch up with him. And no one, just seeing children sing is just hard not to smile from ear to ear. Now, speaking of that, I don't see, is Brendan and Mary in here right now? Is Lucas in here? And Dad? Where are they at?
He's being worked on right now.
Oh, okay. I know some other people that need to be worked on. Maybe we could make a line. So, okay, good. Well, okay, then while we're doing that, why don't we put up the new missions folder. And there's a bunch of images, so we can click on that, and we'll go ahead and pray for our missionary this evening. And then we've got some other special pictures. But I've got some pictures to update you on. So yeah, just click on the first one, I guess, and we'll just go through. But, okay, missions. What does this have to do with missions? Does anybody know what car that is? You do? Go ahead, tell me.
That was y'all's car.
That was our car. Yeah, when we were in Africa, we bought that. We were there for 6 months. But I wanted to know, does anybody know what kind of car it is? I thought, we got a lot of people that work at Nissan.
Mazda.
Yeah, how'd you know? There's the file name on it. You got good eyesight. That's good for you, Zach. It's a Mazda MVP, which I never heard of. But we purchased this, and then because we spent so much on the trip, we left this with Baba Songweni and his wife. So they've had this car, and then because of the roads and everything like that, it's now not working. So there's a large part, it's like 8 inches by 14 inches, and they didn't know the name of it, but it cools the air or does something to the air before it goes into the engine. That's why I was hoping Dave Waldo was here, because he'd probably know. But these cars are from Japan, not from Africa, so they're having a hard time getting that part. We'll be communicating with our missions committee, but the repair could be as much as $750 or $800. But that cost, how much did that cost then? Was it $15? Something like that when we bought it? I don't remember, Bruce, you were with me, but maybe $12. So anyhow, it would be a good investment. But anyway, let's go to the next slide. And, oh, praise the Lord. Does anybody know who this is?
That's
Widow Del Sile. And these are her boys. And their names, Carol? Do you recall? Yeah. Bongenkos, yeah. Makabongwe is one, yes, and I don't remember the other. But anyhow, here they are standing in front of their new home. That's it. So that's not a really good shot, but I did want all of them there. But the next one, is not the shot that I wanted, but it'll come up. But this is Del Sile, and this is her with Inga Donaldson, the missionaries that are there now, really serving in Bruce and Carol's place, keeping everything going. But Del Sile has just graduated from Zion Bible College. So that's the college that Bruce and Carol had been a part of. She graduated just recently, and there she is, and how excited she was to graduate. Now the next slide, that is the new home. Isn't that great? The side is still being painted blue. You can see the buckets open and the rollers there. And in this left corner, you can see the corner of her old home, which was mud and stick. So probably, I'm guessing, around $4,000. That's what we've put into that home. $4,000, $4,500. Let's welcome Tabitha.
Well, I'll try to make it brief, and I can talk forever about Papua New Guinea, even though I was only there for 2 weeks. Just a lot happened. But for any of you who don't know, I guess now you know, I went to Papua New Guinea, but I went with Wycliffe Bible Translators, part of the Get Global program, which is introducing college-age students and high school students to work-life transition and just seeing where we can fit in the process. I was 2 weeks in the country, and I was 1 week in Dallas getting orientation. We got to go to classes every day. It was almost like going to school. We got to learn about phonetics and about how they kind of do the process. We had a linguistics student come and teach us. She's actually got a master's now in it. And we learned about cultural communications, and we had different missionaries come and speak to us. I got to meet a couple of people who actually worked with the Waodani, the same tribe, the Elliots, if you're familiar with Elizabeth Elliot, the four missionaries that were speared. We got to meet her, and she talked to us about the Elliots. And I met a man who had been a part of the clique for 50 years, and he had also worked with that tribe. And so it was really exciting to meet people like that, who are almost like heroes that you had read about when you were a kid, and then you got to meet them. PNG is a beautiful, beautiful country. At least the part we were in was the highlands, and so it's really mountainous, and it was cool, and it was perfect. It's a beautiful country that also has very beautiful, loving people. I don't think I've met hospitality like that ever. I mean, and we pride ourselves in hospitality in the South, but they have us completely beat. They were so welcoming. They made you feel at home, and they wanted you to come back so badly. In Dallas, they told us that the people are what make missions worth it. And when we went to Papua, I realized that it really was. I never felt God calling me to Papua, but I just going there, I just fell in love with the people, and just they made it worth it. That was the best part of the trip, was spending time with them. I was also blessed with a really good team. We fit together perfectly. By the end of it, we were like a big family. There was 11 of us, and ranging from age 16, 17 to 23. So we all kind of looked out for each other, and our leaders became like our adopted parents, and that was a lot of fun. You really come to rely on your team members when you're going into a different culture. You really form a strong bond, even otherwise. I brought back so many memories. Looking at pictures and the videos for this, it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's already been like 6 months. My goals when I went to PNG were to experience another culture and figure out whether I could handle it. I'd always thought I would like intercultural exchanges, but I never experienced it, so I kind of wanted to know whether I could handle it or not. So that was one of my goals. And also, I hope that God would show me a direction He wanted me to take in missions. I also wanted to experience the heart of God in a way I hadn't before and draw closer to Him. And I feel like all of my goals were achieved. I found out that I love travel and going to new places and meeting new people and learning a new culture. I learned some things I was not cut out for, like Bible translation. I'm not a translator. And I learned some things that I was good at. Most importantly, I experienced a dependence on God that I hadn't had before. Just a day-to-day meeting with Him to help support me, especially when I got a stomach sickness. It was like, God, please get me through this. But, so that was really a growing experience for me. I experienced His love and provision in many real, poignant ways. And coming from the trip, I think the main thing that stands out to me is there's nothing more beautiful than fellowship and worshiping with Christians, brothers and sisters in Christ who are from a background so completely different from your own, who live on the other side of the world, but Christ brings you together, and you have that in common. And that was probably the neatest thing for me, was singing worship songs one night randomly with them. They sang songs to us in their language, we sang songs to them, and just having that fellowship with them was just priceless. I may never see some of those people that I made friends with ever again on this earth, but they have really affected me in a strong way, and I hope that we were able to impact them as well and encourage them in the gospel. We went to a village called the Agarabi group. It wasn't a village, it's a people group, and the village we went to is called 4 Mile, and that's where we stayed. And our job that weekend was to show Jesus films that they had translated into Agarabi to the people. We were trying to encourage the translation that they had in the New Testament, which there hasn't been a lot of response. There's kind of a spiritual darkness over that people group, so they weren't responding very well. But having a whole crowd of young white Americans come and show them the Jesus film was a major draw. So we drew some crowds, and hopefully they came away with something because of it. One night, the first night that we showed the Jesus film, I have one memory that really sticks out, and just a showing of their hospitality and their love. Their love language is touch and gift-giving. And so they're always holding onto each other and hugging each other. The guys walk around holding hands, the girls walk around holding hands. It's kind of weird when you see guys holding hands all the time, but it's really cool. They, the first night, they kind of like adopted you. They kind of grabbed a hold of you and took you off and sat you down. And the lady who had gotten me, her name was Doria, and she went and got me some food, and it was really dark in the room, and I couldn't see much, and it was kind of scary. I was all sort of by myself. There was only one teammate near me, and I was surrounded by all these strangers, and I couldn't see anything hardly. There was one little fire, and but she brought me some food, and I ate it, and she gave me an orange, and they kind of just like took charge of me. I mean, like they even held my water bottle. They wouldn't let me touch it. They were like, I say, I'm thirsty. And I'm scared, give me a drink, and then I take it back. Then at the end of it, she was so happy, and she sent her little sister off to go back to their hut, and she brought back a beeline. And if you saw my table, they're like string bags that they make. And so giving a beeline, they take about 2 weeks to make, so it's a pretty significant gift for them. So she brought me back a beeline, and someone had given me a pineapple, and she put it in there, and then she hung it around my neck. And she started to call me like her one talk, and basically I gathered she was saying like I was her sister, like they had adopted me, and that was one of them now. And that was my first time having that happen on the trip so far, and that really was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And she kind of wrapped her arm around me and walked me to the van. We were getting ready to leave, and so she hugged me and seemed really sad that I was leaving because I told her I probably wouldn't be back. And we had exchanged information, but as we were leaving, the people crowded around the van, and they were all reaching towards the van and hollering at us and saying goodbye. And I just opened one of the windows, and immediately, like Doria and a couple of the other women, like their hands came through the window and grabbing for mine. And as we drove away, they just like held onto my hand and were like crying goodbye. And that was really hard. Realizing that I'd never see them again, but just feeling that they loved me and they cared about me, and just feeling that love and caring for them in return. She was a really good friend, even if it was just for one evening. So, I have a video that my leader Craig put together of our trip. It's got pictures of different people on the trip, but it has some good representation of what we did. So I'd like to play that. walking up to a nearby village called Bai Village, and that was our first village that we visited. This is a translation process. This is Rich Maddox, and those are his religion helpers. This is the market in Kanyatu, and this is the Agarabi village that we stayed at. They were teaching us game games. We went to teach them, and they ended up teaching us. This is the showing of the Jesus film. These are things like the Bible translations. The kids will slide on anything. They slide on dirt, they slide on grass, they love it. And Andrew was a very good juggler, and he was the star of our team. Here's another show of the Jesus film. Bigger coffee there. And they love to sing. That's when we were adopted. They put beavers on our heads. That's a moo-moo. They cook the food under the ground, and you have to uncover it. Using branches to keep the flies away. This is the school at Ukarumpa, the missionary kids and some of the natives go there too. They have a little preschool that some of the kids have done. Market. That's where we stayed most of the time. And that's a bridge that people still go across, and it's really scary. Guy's doing dish duty. After the village, our feet are really dirty. I hope that you enjoyed that, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions about Papua, you can just ask me afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't see Samuel yet, but with our weather report, he may have been detained because of weather. So I'm going to go ahead and Samuel, he's not here yet. Okay.
There's a text message.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me what it says?
It says the weather's going to be bad, so that's what I
okay, that's what I expected. So, well, we'll let him come another morning and share with us. We'll look forward to that. And the weather is bad in some place, so thank you, Paul. All right, I'm going to ask Bruce and Carol and Mary and Brendan to come on up, and I've got these nice seats for them up here, and we've got some microphones, and I'll push this other out of the way. What we thought we'd do tonight is, we know that they in the arm wrestling match last night, they were both abdicating to the other person. No, you share. No, you share. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. So I heard you all asking a lot of questions, and I know we've gotten so full and have learned so much that I think we'll be able to get some questions answered, and then also as a part of that, before we finish, will each of them share a parting thought if it's something the Lord has placed on their heart for us. So we can direct that over to them. And
I have some lights.
I'll get some lights, yeah. Brendan, why don't you put this on? And we'll leave this here. And I'll put another one over here. And if you are one of the people speaking, you can use that microphone. So, I'll just begin. Does anyone have any questions for Bruce, and Carol, or Mary and Brendan? And you could direct it to one of them, or you could just ask the question in general about missions, and they can decide who will answer. So, Bethany?
This may have been answered last night, but I wasn't here. Bruce shared kind of how they got into missions and what their call was. I was wondering, Brendan and Mary, how you knew that you were to go into missions and how you knew it was to begin.
I had gone on several trips, sort of like what Tamitha did when I was in high school. But my parents used to have the missionaries come and stay in our house when I was a kid, and I didn't really understand or like the sermons very much, but I liked, except for Jim's. But I liked it when they showed pictures, because I saw God working there. And after I went on a trip myself, I really felt God calling me into service overseas when I was about 15 years old.
And I just, when I was also around 15, I really felt God's calling, I guess, to commit my whole life to Him, to not hold anything back. And then after that it was, whatever you want me to do, God, if it's here or there. And so I think after that commitment, where I went or what I did wasn't that big a deal.
So did you know before you were married that was something you planned to do together?
Yeah.
Okay. And just the B part of that question, Bruce said he came home and told you that you were going to Swaziland. We didn't get to hear what you said to that. I mean, obviously you went, but...
Okay. Yeah, well, before we were married, I knew that he was very much interested in missions and being involved one way or another. And when he came home, it was going to be 2 years. We were going out for 2 years, and I'm thinking, I can do anything for 2 years, and this is something that he really wants to do. We'll get it out of his system, and we'll go for 2 years and come back to the States. But God had other plans, and He got me over there, and then He worked in my heart and my life. I did not grow up in a Christian church, and I did not come in contact with missions or missionaries until I was 15, and then it was only very minimal.
Is this mic on at all? This one here? Go ahead.
No.
Bruce, you can you turn that on? And turn mine on too here. Okay, this one. And then in the future, when a question's asked, I'll repeat it because we're recording this, and so that'll help with the sound. So, Bruce, I think, is your mic on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, there it is now. Okay. So they were asking, the question was asked about how did you know you were called? And you might have shared a little bit of that, in your testimony. Anyone else have any other comments on that? Okay, great. Does anyone else have a question?
I was wondering for Brendan and Mary, I don't know if I got what group or organization they went with, or did you just go completely on your own? And what kind of preparation did you have, particularly for going to a dangerous area, or dangerous?
Melody has asked a question about how Brendan and Mary selected their mission board and how they selected such a dangerous area.
What kind of preparation did you have?
And what preparations they had to make.
I think it's a good question because people realize there are mission boards out there. And I think all the mission boards, every one of them would say, we're not the ones actually sending, but we help do the things that the church cannot. The church sends. And what they do is give us pastoral support. They help us be trained, make sure that we're trained. Sometimes there's a team that exists in that country already, and they help with that we get health insurance, with the other missionaries and things like that. So we went to a conference in Louisville and just went up and down the aisles, kind of like what we have there, the display things. And we asked God to lead us to one, and He led us to one called InterServe. which had more professional people in it, older people, and they had a lot of what they call jobs available for doctors and teachers. So that's what got us in that. There was more than a couple that was at the booth and said, hey, we don't live that far from you, we want to talk, and just kind of help you through the process. And then we had to take a test to see how our Bible knowledge was, and I think we barely passed it. Otherwise, they recommend that you do more Bible training. And we went to their headquarters for like 2 weeks of training with them. And then as the country got worse, then we had training, a year and a half ago, too, where they simulated a kidnapping. You know, we were all together, and they came in with blanks and shot, and they blindfolded us and that kind of thing.
And we also did like how to deal with being confronted in particular ways, and like what to do if you're like mugged, and maybe more common.
Oh, at the last training, yeah.
Violent things.
Wow. Has anyone attended a mugging training or an abduction training as a part of your job? Great, very good question. Yeah, now this would be the time to ask any question that you want to know. There's no question that's too embarrassing. Well, there might be. We'll just let you know. But no, just something you might want to know about missions.
Well, I just want to say about 2 embarrassing questions. We've been living in Yemen, and there's nothing private.
Okay, anyone else have a question? Zach?
How did you deal with the transition from our modern living to how you live over there for all of you?
Okay, so Zach asked the question, how did you transition from, modern living, that, the conditions we have in America, to the places that you've lived? And they are quite different, so anyone can answer that.
Well, Bruce and I went out at age 23, and we were expecting to rough it more than we did. We were on a mission station. We had electric lights, not enough electricity for appliances, but we used gas stoves for our cooking, and kerosene refrigerators for keeping our food cold. And when we wanted hot water, we had a little wood stove that had a water ring, and it would heat the water and then go into a storage tank. So if we had fire in our little potbelly stove, we would have hot water on tap. And we lived very comfortably. Our 2 children were born during that time on the mission station, and they had a lot of freedom to just roam the mission station and play in the irrigation ditch and play with their Swazi friends. It was a great place. No place to go in the evening, so we had a lot of family time and interaction, playing games and enjoying one another in the home. It was super.
Anyone else want to comment on the transition between modern living and maybe some different technology and different living conditions?
I think more than the technology and things like that. Although I have to say, when I first come back and I go to a grocery store, like it's terrifying. But like more than that, I think you do go through culture shock. I think everybody who spends a lot of time overseas does. And before we went, we saw this graph that says, you come, you love everything, and then after about like 4 months, you start to hate everything, and then you sort of even out, and you're like, oh yeah, this feels comfortable. And like, I sort of followed that graph exactly. And when I felt like, oh, I hate this place, I remembered, oh yeah, I've been here for a while. This is how I should be feeling. I'm doing great. And that was really reassuring.
Now, Mary, you said, and I laughed because I've been there, and I've heard Carol speak about this, but others won't understand the joke. You said when I came back, the grocery store was terrifying. Would you speak to that? What do you mean by that? Because we don't find grocery stores terrifying. We like to hang out in them, frankly.
So many choices. You go down the row aisle of breakfast cereals, for example. There's so many choices. Rice, yeah, there's just so many choices in grocery stores here.
And not so in Africa or in other places.
Although these days we're getting more and more choices in Africa, of course. But the necessities definitely are there, but in America we have a lot of extras.
And Mary, did you find the same thing to be true, that just the reason that the grocery stores were terrifying was Just the overwhelming amount of stuff?
Yeah, that's most of it. But also, like, shopping in other places is more interactive. So you don't just pick a can off the shelf. You just point to the can that you want, and someone gives it to you. You ask for, a kilo of lentils, and like they know your kid, and like they always give them a treat because you prefer peanut eat, but you can't tell them that. And yeah, so it's.
And you guys did shop more in open markets, and Brendan had some dietary issues, and you guys found a lot more, shopping in the market as a part of your eating experience, didn't you, in Yemen? Okay, great. All right, anyone else? A question? Okay, Kevin first.
Okay. How much, it might be different because there was a few years between your first departure and their first departure, so there's might be a difference. But how much, I guess, like training and orientation or anything like that, did you go through to kind of understand the cultural difference, the social norms, the things that you do and don't do, say and don't say? Because I can see in some countries it might be very easy to grossly insult someone and have no idea that you even did it. So how much of that kind of thing did you go through in advance, or did you just have to learn by making a lot of mistakes and mad people?
Kevin has asked a question about the amount of training that they each receive, and especially references that these couples are decades apart in their preparation. So, and again, I know this sounds redundant to you, but on the tape, you'll hear everything they say, and then you'll hear nothing. So this will help those that are listening to our recording. So the question is about how much cultural training did you receive, and how did you receive it?
We had some experience with internationals in this country, so we began to talk about the differences that might exist, but even so, we made mistakes. Like, I was told that you don't shake women's hands, but when I saw my language teacher for the first time outside of the classroom, I said, "Hi, Mingma, how are you?" She's just like, looking at me. It was so embarrassing.
So you're not very trainable.
Yeah, exactly. Old habits die hard, we're stuff we didn't even know. We realized we have a culture too.
And if I can add on to that also, do the people that you deal with, did they cut you any slack for the fact that you were, so it wasn't like, well, we don't care if you're not from here, we're insulted anyway, or did they go, okay, well, they're Americans, so.
Yeah, totally, yeah. They're so nice, like she said about Papua New Guinea, just people are nice,
Same for Swaziland. The people were very, very gracious and overlooked our mistakes. And for us, basically, it was just meeting with some missionaries. Everything happened rather quickly for us, and we were out in Swaziland after a very, 2 months after we began talking about going. So everything happened quickly, so we learned a lot on the spot.
Can any of you think of a time that you really kind of stepped over a cultural barrier, or maybe you found something that you often stepped over, but can you recall something in the culture that you were like, oh boy, I did it again, where you kind of tripped over yourself or found yourself making some social errors? Can you think of anything? You guys have a much longer history. The shaking the hand is a great example,
Well, in Swaziland, too, you would never just extend your hand to shake. You would always put your other hand to shake somebody's hand. And if it's an older person, you wouldn't look directly in their eyes. You would kind of look down. And what were some of the other things? But again, they were very gracious. They knew we were coming from another culture and very open and receptive. Very forgiving.
Now, Brennan, when you have men over to the house to speak in the afternoon, this would be very unusual in our culture where we're so much about equality and gender, but what are the rules regarding where Mary is? And tell us a little bit about how that works, either of you.
Well, before our afternoon meeting, Mary and I would talk and say, how many do you have coming? How many do you have coming? And then we'd say, who gets what room? And then the two couldn't meet. So I was in the one room, but to get something from the kitchen, like juice or cookies, I would call out, Mary, is everyone in? And they would scurry and run in there, and then I'd run in and get some juice. or she would bring it to me, or vice versa, because they couldn't.
Men and women could not be together.
Yeah.
You couldn't have walked into the room where the women were.
Well, the women would all be uncovered there in the Mary side. Once they came in the house, they took off all those robes and they were in jeans, I guess. Yeah. Never know. Yeah.
You don't know what they. Yeah.
Yes. That was like,
Could have been polka dot pajamas they were all wearing.
yeah, it's like if you've ever been in a wedding and, you know, the ladies are changing in one spot. You can't come in, don't, you know, are you ready? Is everyone, you know, that kind of thing. It's like that.
Oh, that's a good analogy. And Mary, you wore the covering when you would go out in public. Everything covered except your eyes?
No, but all my hair covered
Okay.
and my clothes covered.
And the long robe, which would be like to your ankles.
Yeah.
Yeah, just reminded you. Brother Jim had a question.
I had a two-part question. Were all four of you degreed when you went out?
So what was your academic training is the first part of the question. Your second part, Jim?
I want to ask the Britons, do they still have an intimate connection with your station over there, although you retired?
And then asking about their continued connection with the field. So the amount of training, academic training and degrees you have, and maybe we'll address that first, and then we'll let Bruce and Carol answer the question about their continued relationship with Swaziland. So,
I got my MD degree and then finished residency in Chicago in family medicine.
Yeah, I have a degree also, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite. Like, you can do all kinds of things. Whatever you want to do, really.
what is your degree in, Mary?
English literature.
English literature. Okay, very good.
I don't have a degree, but I did secretarial training, and then I did do Moody Extension up there in Akron.
Right.
And I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and later on over in Africa, I got a postgraduate degree in teaching.
And then they've asked about your relationship with Swaziland right now. Having spent so many years there, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, praise the Lord for internet. We are communicating via internet and, of course, phone and Skype, and we're keeping up with what's going on there now, and rejoicing and praising God for the way that the ministry is continuing. The Bible school is growing, and our national teachers are doing such a fantastic job, and we hear reports about the churches of these pastors that are attending the Bible college and the changes that are still continuing to happen. So we just really praise God for the reports that we continue to get.
More importantly, we haven't even once said to them, how could you possibly change the way we did it?
Well, would you be considered now like a matriarch and a patriarch of that school, whatever,
And I think they look at us like that.
and serve as an advisory couple?
We try not to advise too much and pray much.
But they are regarded with a great deal of respect. The Swazi people are very, as she mentioned, that they honor their elders. And so Bruce and Carol both enjoyed a great deal of respect when he would come into a meeting. They were very sad, not just the school, but the nation was very sad when Bruce and Carol left. They were well known in Swaziland and in the cities of Manzini and Bobane, and they've done so much for the people. And so it was a great loss when they left the country, and they are still regarded very highly. So they're being quite modest.
And it's a culture where gray hair is very much honored. So it's a real privilege to have gray hair.
And remember, Bruce spoke Siswati fluently. He would say no, but when he would come into a men's meeting or a pastoral meeting, you can imagine this gentleman coming to the front and speaking and teaching and preaching in fluent Siswati. There aren't many missionaries. In fact, the missionaries that I worked with there, I would like be learning Siswati, and they're like, Jim, don't bother. because they're all trying to learn English. So they would rather speak and teach in English to the younger, but still there was a great deal of respect that he knew it and spoke it. And there won't be a missionary like Bruce and Carol in Swaziland again for a long time. I think that things are just changing so much. But also the Zion Bible College School learned so much from the way they structured it. They're trying very hard to honor that. I know Donaldson's and others are. So yes, down there I see.
Well, if there was a question I could ask them, we're kind of been in and out, and America has changed a lot. Just wondering how the American church is thinking about missions in this time frame, and this, what is God leading you? How is God leading you? And maybe some things that happened at this conference. We're sad we weren't able to make it for the first few days or get to know you better. But just wanted to ask questions of them too, if that's allowed.
Good. Let's do this. Jeff in the back, you had your hand up. Let me get that question, then we'll change direction with this question, okay? Jeff?
My question was along with Jim's question. I was wondering from the Britons what does retirement look like now for them? Are they still involved over there? Which he answered that. But does he speak at conferences? Does he pastor a church? What does retirement look like for them?
The question is, what does retirement look like for the Britons? You guys can answer this question yet.
We've moved to inner city in Akron, and we're working alongside a ministry called Urban Vision, and we're reaching out to our neighborhood, which is predominantly African American and Burmese refugees. And Urban Vision has after kids activities every day at the center, and we're involved in some of the things at the center. But I'm mainly involved in an ESL Bible study for Burmese women and a discipleship group for African American women. And we do door-to-door home visitation, and that's what we're doing now in retirement.
It doesn't sound like retirement.
I'm getting books. I'm writing textbooks and getting them translated into 2 African languages.
How many books have you written, Bruce?
8.
And are you working on new ones, or are these revisions of some that you've written?
No, it was a new one.
Okay, so you're working on a new one. When I was there, I rarely saw him, because he was trying to finish the books he was writing. And his reasoning was, I'm leaving the country, but I'm going to leave these books behind for these people. And they're really practical books that you could hand to a Swazi gentleman that wanted to be a pastor, and the book would show him how to be a pastor. They're really extraordinary, and they're written in their language. Also, you don't know this, missions changes people's hearts and the way they approach things. The Britons aren't just working at Urban Vision in Akron, but they have moved into the neighborhood, which is not a very good neighborhood. I'm not saying, you know what I mean by that.
It was good before we got there.
But they moved into the neighborhood, and so that's a real missions approach to things. They live in that neighborhood and they do Bible studies and work there. They're actually working with a girl that I went to school with. The camp that I was working at, when Jeff Schofield called me on a cell phone one day and said, "Hi, we got your name. We're looking for a church." So that's where they're living and working now. So another connection. What we're going to do now?
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah, please.
Are Mary and Brennan, are you planning to go back to that region at some point?
Yeah, we had a period of 5 years in Yemen, and the door closed very tightly there for a bunch of different reasons. And we'd like to go back to Yemen in the future, but each time we had to escape Yemen, we went to Egypt, and we saw there was a mission movement there. And we were able to play a role in that by teaching them medicine and also discipling them as they figure out how to become missionaries themselves to Yemen and to other countries in the region. And the door was basically flung wide open for us there. And we're going, God willing, to Aswan, Egypt, which is just north of Sudan, where there's a mission hospital that's training Egyptian doctors. And it's also reaching a Muslim unreached people group called the Nubians. And we're hoping to go back there in July or August.
Now, isn't Egypt still unstable as well, though?
Yeah, and when we moved to Yemen, it was unsafe, but we had freedom there when we moved. We could do whatever we wanted, we could go wherever we wanted, and that just closed on us. And Egypt, though it still has problems, it has that freedom still that we're able to go and do what we can do there right now. And we learned that it might not be that way for long, so we're really hoping to take each day seriously.
What's your goal to get back to Aswan?
The time?
Yeah, when you see yourselves back in country.
Well, I finished a training program in Memphis in July, 1st of July, so we're hoping as soon as possible after that.
Okay. And at this point, how much support do you have toward going back? What percentage of your support? Don't laugh, Mary. That's a real question.
Well, this month we plan to send out a letter to our old supporters and to other people that we've met, and to say we believe that this is a need that they've asked us to fill there. Right. We believe God calling us there. What do you feel about sending us for this time period? And then see what response we get back.
Sorry, Jim, I was just laughing because, you know, we asked people to stop supporting us, and there was one church that just kept supporting us, so we have one supporting church.
One supporting church at this time. What will you need to go back? How much support annually will you need to take your family to Aswan?
And we're not sure, because InnerServe will set that amount based on what they think we need to live in that country, as well as the flights and the health insurance and things.
How much did you use per year to stay in Yemen? What was your budget then?
Total that had to be given? Yeah, maybe 40,000, 45,000 a year.
Okay, do you think it'll be about that? In Egypt?
Yeah, about that, because cost of living is less in Egypt, but the house rent is more.
All right, so that's kind of a ballpark figure. And so you're at one supporter, you need to get back up to 45 or 50,000. But it worked out last time, right? The money came in. Okay, Bethany's hand's been up. Go ahead, Bethany.
It's a two-parter, but all of you, you know, we're away from your families, your extended families, and I think that holds a lot of people back. And so I was just curious how you address this with your family, what kind, whether you received support or people pulling back, and particularly going into a dangerous area. I mean, when my brother and his sister and his wife moved into an inner city area that was renovated, my grandmother was all over them. Well, you can't be there with the children, you know. So to go to Yemen or to go to Africa and have your children there, how did you prepare and deal with your families for this choice? Because it seems to me that would be harder than anything else.
And go ahead with the second part of your question.
The second part was, since you're working in the inner city, I was curious if you see down through the ages in America that many of the things that are apparent in Swaziland are apparent in our African American societies, things like more touch, more open emotionalism, things like that. I wondered if you saw a connection to the people that you were used to being around in Africa, in our African American communities, and if that made it comfortable.
Okay, so the question is, how do your families react to your calling? And then if you see any parallel between the cultures where you lived in the inner city. And that question would be more for the Britons, because you do live in an urban context with African Americans here. So either any of you can answer the first question, how do your families react, and then...
Yeah, we've just moved into the inner city. We've been living there since July, so we're just really basically getting to know our neighborhood. The one thing I really did appreciate in July, everybody's out on the front porch. And, you know, you walk up the street and there's people sitting on the front porch. You can walk over and start chatting. We had not experienced that in other areas that we have lived in the suburbs. So that was unique. And I anticipate that we're going to have great opportunities to get to know neighbors and to chat with them. But yeah, we're still learning a lot about inner city. And then about family overseas, we opted to keep our children with us. We did not send them off to boarding school. They went to the local schools. Both of our children started out in primary school, the only white kids in an all-Swazi school. And yeah, that was a positive experience. Primarily, yeah, there were some hiccups, of course. But, and that's the most difficult part of missions, is being separated, of course, from family. Our last 7 years in Swaziland, we had a daughter who was battling cancer, and that was a terrible time to be separated. But God graciously provided and made it possible for us to come back every year and spend some time with her. But yeah, family, that's the biggest sacrifice that missionaries make, I believe.
And how have you dealt with that, Carol and or Bruce? I mean, you're away from your children and your grandchildren for so long, and even your daughter's extended illness and death. How did you stay on the field, and you know, what part of your thinking, and I know how difficult that was, but I also know part of the answer. How could you do that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just the truth of God's Word. God is faithful, and just seek Him, and whatever the problem, whatever the difficulty, somehow, some way, He sees you through and He provides for you. And yeah, I wouldn't trade my missionary experience for anything, as difficult as it was to go through that period of time of separation and then our daughter's death. And yeah, just God's faithfulness and bringing people, promises in His Word, the truth of His Word. And heaven, we know we're going to be reunited. And we're looking forward to that grand reunion in heaven one day.
I think when we set out, we thought it seems like such a long time, you know, but in light of eternity, the other thing that we noticed is that it was quality time and not quantity with our family. That when we came back, it was so, and that they're praying for us, thinking about it. It was like we bonded with them in a totally different way than if we lived down the street from them. You know, it had that much more value to come and to be with them and to speak on the phone and that kind of thing. So I think God, you know, blessed us in a way. What did you say, Mary?
And really, it's what I've heard them say, because, you know, I wrestled with this when the Britons were away, but, you know, the reality is they're going to get to spend a little bit of time with Sue, aren't they? That's their daughter that passed. Not a little bit of time. They're going to get to spend eternity with her. And so, you know, it's just putting things in God's perspective. And they did that extremely well and modeled that. I mean, everyone in Africa knew about Sue as well. When we go to these meetings, they knew her condition.